Hello! Welcome to Prologue for Christina Ham's Nina Simone for Women, directed by Charlotte Brathwaite. My name is Fiona Kyle, and I'm the Literary Manager and Artistic Associate here at Geva. I'd like to begin with some biographical information about Nina Simone. I encourage you to learn more when you're here at Geva by looking through our lobby and learning more about her and your programs. Nina Simone was born Eunice Kathleen Wayman in 1933 in Tryon, North Carolina, near Asheville, as the sixth of 8 children. Her father, John Devine Wayman, was a barber and dry cleaner, and her mother, Mary Kate Irvin, was a preacher at St. Luke's AME. AME meaning African Methodist Episcopal. Nina began playing piano tremendously young, at either 3 or 4 years of age, and played during church services. She began taking private piano lessons throughout her childhood, practicing between 6 to 8 hours a day. She loved it, but it did mean she spent more time with her piano than she did with others her own age. When she would spend time with young people, she wound up playing the piano for them to dance to, rather than dancing herself. She graduated from Allen High School for Girls and then went to New York City to study at Juilliard in 1950. She applied to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, but was denied admission, likely due to her race. She took private lessons during this time, taught piano from home to supplement her income from other jobs, and began performing in Atlantic City at the Midtown Bar and Grill. At Midtown, they insisted she sing. She took on a pseudonym that became permanent, Nina Simone, to hide from her mother that she was playing the devil's music. She played jazz, blues, and classical, and began developing a loyal following. In 1958, she recorded I Loves You Porgy, and it launched her career, becoming a Billboard Top 20 success. She released her first album, Little Girl Blue, in 1959. She began recording studio and live albums and became a mainstay in New York City's Greenwich Village. Around this time, she met Andrew Stroud, and they married in 1961. He became her manager and took a lead role in continuing the success of her career. The pair moved to Mount Vernon, New York, where they raised their daughter, Lisa. They lived near Malcolm X, and young Lisa was very close with his and Betty Shabazz daughters. Simone became close friends with playwright and activist Lorraine Hansberry, and Lisa recounted the meeting of the minds that would happen at their home in Mount Vernon. In 1963, when Simone's daughter was only 1 year old, the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing happened in Birmingham, Alabama. The KKK planted dynamite under the church, which had been the meeting place for the Children's Crusade and was a rallying point for civil rights groups like the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Congress on Racial Equality. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph Abernathy, and many other civil rights leaders frequented the church for meetings and events. The bomb went off in the morning as 5 children were in the basement changing into their choir robes before a sermon. Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Carol Denise McNair were all killed. 1 young girl in the basement, Sarah Collins Rudolph, survived, and others received injuries. When Simone heard of the bombing, she immediately wanted to do something. She thought about making a gun and getting her revenge that way. Her husband prevented her, saying that she was a musician and she needed to put her energy into her music. Simone said that she started writing and her civil rights anthem, Mississippi Goddamn, poured out of her in under an hour. In it, she also poured her rage over the assassination of another civil rights leader, Medgar Evers, in Mississippi. Years later, Simone told her daughter that there was so much rage and sadness in the song that it impacted her vocal range. She believes she lost her higher register of notes by performing the song. Mississippi Goddamn changed Simone and led her to use her prominence as a musician and artist to talk about the civil rights movement and write more explicitly about her experience in the world. Simone said, "I had to say something, express or explode." She was asked in an article by Maya Angelou if those 4 children who were murdered served as the seeds of her scalding composition, For Women. And Nina said, "I guess they were. They came to me while I was on an airplane. I wrote it and kept it to myself for a year before I was ready to share it. I had to make sure I was saying a whole truth. The four women in the song, Peaches, Aunt Sarah, Sophronia, and Sweet Thing, are the basis for the characters in the show you're going to see at Geva. These characters represent stereotypes of Black women that Simone both saw and experienced herself and wanted to explore in her music. By writing this song, she interrogated those stereotypes and uncovered the fullness of those women. As you'll see in the performance, each of these characters is specific, has a strong point of view, and struggles with the lens that has been placed on them by white patriarchal society. In this production, they also represent different sides of Simone herself, hence why each of them will be called Nina in your programs. In the play, as Simone is working to write what becomes Mississippi Goddam, these characters become like foils for her. They're telling her their opinion on whether she should write the song and what she should do to take action against those who bombed the church. In some ways, they become like the devil and the angel we sometimes have on our shoulders. In others, each character in the play is like Simone looking at herself in a funhouse mirror, a different part of herself emphasized in each character. Charlotte Brathwaite's direction for Nina Simone for Women could be considered abstract, in that it takes the text of the play and explores the emotions surrounding it. Brathwaite's approach has been called metaphysical, a more philosophical approach that examines what is reality. Assistant director / movement Audrey Hales called it hyper-realism. We are both in a real space where Simone is physically writing the song, but we're also in the truer space of her mind as she's contemplating the song and its impact. Like Simone said about writing the song for women, this production is about saying a whole truth. The movement you'll see in the production was developed by the whole company, director and actors, and led by Hales. Hales was inspired by Simone herself. As I mentioned, Simone started playing piano at such a young age, and the hours of practicing, the dedication, and how she moved in relation to the piano inspired the movement you'll see on stage. In her later life, Simone left America first to live in Liberia, then Barbados, Switzerland, and eventually settled in France. Hales mentioned that Simone had a kinetic energy to her later performances, as if there was an energy trying to bust out of her skin that was of huge inspiration to the whole company as well. While Simone was a musician, Nina Simone for Women is not a musical or even strictly a play with music. Throughout, you'll hear songs from Simone's life, some of her own and some that she would have learned at church as a young person. But the sound design by YATTA, aka Ricky Sallay Zoker, feels like sampling. You're hearing a section of a song rather than the full song, except in a few key instances. The original music by YATTA, music director Justin Hicks, and Exene Sky, who plays Eunice and piano on stage, reinforces that hyper-naturalism that we mentioned earlier. Before I leave you today, I want to share a section of an essay written by Maya Angelou for Redbook in 1970 about Nina Simone that I hope you will keep with you as you watch the performance. Nina Simone represents the eternal artistic enigma. Her personality contains contradictions of gigantic proportions. She is that consummate performer who practices and sharpens, honing her craft to a piercing point. But in personal appearances, she displays an aura of considered apathy. She has woven into her work all the soul-learned truths of pain and joy, yet she is known by many to be unsocial and ungiving in personal contact. Nina Simone is able to stand upon a shadowed stage, take in all light, and then return that luminescence to her audience in opulent, pulsating rays. At other times, and with no seeming reluctance, she rejects the audience, rejects their physical fact, rejects their loyalty, rejects their devotion. What formed this puzzle? What further convolutes this complexity? America, so Nina Simone says, and her inflection carries centuries of oppression and deferred dreams. America is itself a contradiction. Her sinewy fingers knit dark patterns in the air as she explains that history, Black history, lives for her in the urgency of today, the past being the very alive parent of the future. Thank you for joining me for the prologue for Nina Simone for Women. I hope you enjoy the show.